Title companies and closings explained. Guys, it's Rick Ginn, and in this video, I'm going to explain the purpose of a title company, what they actually do. Then I'm going to walk you through the 10 closing steps that all titles take to complete a real estate transaction. But before I get into it, do me a favor, make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe button so other people can find out how to get into wholesaling real estate. So what is a title company and what does it do? A title company basically is an insurance company. You're like, whoa, wait a minute, Rick. How can they be an insurance company? That's right. They sell title insurance. And title insurance is basically backed up by large insurance companies. There's 2 or 3 that pretty much dominate the entire United States. And then basically they underwrite a policy to ensure that the title is clean and everything is above board. Now, just like when you carry your auto insurance, your home insurance, they're going to underwrite each individual property separately. And basically, they're going to assess the risk. And if there's any problems with that piece of real estate with the title, hence a quick claim deed, some sort of a strange transaction, they have to prove it up. And honestly, if they can't get clean title, they will not issue an insurance policy. They're just like everybody else out there. The most important piece of title insurance and a title company is finding out a problem before you or your cash buyers buy a property. That's why title companies are so imperative in working with you as the wholesaler. Now, keep in mind, the other advantage is they're also licensed and regulated on a state-by-state basis, meaning they get periodically audited. And if they do not comply with the regulations and the state laws, they get shut down. And basically, the title insurance company, I also want you to understand, is the cleaner the title company's record, meaning the least amount of claims they put in, the higher the percentage they get paid on the title insurance. So let me give you a little example. And I know title companies are going to get upset, but I'm just going to spit it out. When a title insurance policy is paid, the title company on average gets between 50 and 65% of the title policy. If you paid $1,000 title insurance premium, they basically made between $500 and $600 of that, and the other portion goes into an underwriting risk pool to cover any types of claims that arise from title. So the better the title company, the more money they make. It encourages them to run a much tighter ship. If a title company gets too many strikes and claims against them, they basically will lose their credentials and they won't be licensed and insured. And a lot of these title companies go out of business, the ones that do not want to follow the rules. The real purpose of a title company is to ensure clear and clean title. That's it. And think about this. Who's ever buying the property wants to make sure no one's going to come out of the woodworks and make a claim that they either owe a bunch of money or so-and-so didn't sign off on the title. And title insurance makes everyone feel more uncomfortable. In fact, any property done over $25,000, it would be very rare not to get title insurance. So that's why you see most real estate transactions covered through title insurance via a title company. Now, there are different types of title companies depending on what state you are. Some states require you to have an attorney present at your closing and they work with a title company. Some title companies are owned by attorneys, but either way, it is a great idea to get title insurance. And honestly, if you're selling to a cash buyer for anything over $25,000, most of them would never take the risk to buy a property without title insurance because whatever they put out, if it's $100 grand or $200 grand, that is the amount that is going to be insured in the title policy. Bottom line, guys, if anybody buys a property without title insurance, they are taking an inherent risk. If the transaction's fraudulent, if the deeds aren't recorded correctly, they could wind up in a massive lawsuit. And that's what title insurance is there for. In fact, honestly, if you have a new cash buyer, they're going to insist that you get title insurance. If you ever to transact on a property without title insurance outside of creative deal, understanding it can be risky, especially if you're new to real estate. So if you want to learn more on how to interview a title company as a wholesaler, I'm going to put a link below. I've done this video. It's extremely thorough. There's 3 basic questions you want to ask. Click that link to get more information on how to interview your title company. Or you can also go over to freewholesaling.com. So now let's walk through the 10 steps a title company takes for the average real estate closing. And yes, this will cover wholesaling, but you just need to understand what is the process of a closing at a title company. So the first and foremost, the most important thing, especially if you're a wholesaler, and honestly, even if you're a real estate agent or you're just a fix and flipper or you're someone looking to buy a house, you should choose the title company. Now, as a wholesaler, it is non-negotiable. In fact, if they want to use another title company, I most likely would walk away from the deal because whoever picks the title company is really in control. It is the bottom line. I'm telling you, do not waver on this. In fact, I can point to the few deals that have fallen apart at a closing table, and most of them point to using an outside title company. The reason why you want to pick your own title company is number one, you usually get the best fees possible. Number two, they understand your business. They work with assignment of contracts, and they will work with your seller, contact your seller, and basically represent you in the best interest possible. And the last but not least, they'll communicate any problems that come up. If your cash buyer is having problems with the closing date, if your seller's getting nervous or your seller's thinking about backing out, the first person most of these people usually reach out to is your title company. And it is imperative that your title company communicates that information to you as soon as possible. So make sure that you, the wholesaler, even a real estate agent, fix and flipper, or a person that just wants to buy a property, I would pick your own title company because you minimize the risk of the deal falling apart. Don't forget that, because if you skip this part, the rest of what I explained to you is completely out of your control. Now, a title company is supposed to be completely neutral. They are somewhat unbiased, meaning they represent both sides. But to be honest with you, they represent the transaction to that piece of real estate. And whoever brings them the deal is usually who their loyalty is going to abide with. Now, it doesn't mean they break the law or they do things, but they will communicate with one side that brought them the deal much more effectively and quickly than an outside seller or buyer. Just keep that in mind. So the first step is basically submitting your contract. Once you have a fully executed contract, meaning the buyer and seller have signed it, you should immediately submit it to your title company. I know a lot of your wholesalers go, I'm going to wait till I find a cash buyer. That is a really bad decision. You need to submit it for title so they can pull the title so you can find out if there's any potential problems with the property. And let's face it, as a wholesaler, we go out and hunt for problems. So the sooner you can identify the problem, the sooner you can fix it and the less delays you'll have in wholesaling. Step number two is you're going to open up escrow at the title company. And escrow is just a fancy word for a neutral party holding the deposit. And escrow is licensed and regulated on a state-by-state basis. And it's important that you establish your escrow. So whatever you put on your contract, anywhere from $100 to whatever it is, $500 or $1,000, it is important you put that on record. Why? Number one, it validates your contract. Number two, most importantly, it makes your seller understand that you are serious about what you're doing. No deposit. They get a lot of questions. They start talking to their friends, the realtors. He or she didn't leave you a deposit. They don't sound like they're very serious. And that's when your contracts become unwind. Keep in mind, this money is 100% refundable based on your inspection period. Do not skimp on this step. Even if you did a $10 deposit, execute it, because that's what makes your contract more fulfilled. That's what makes your contract executed. It adds another layer of protection for you. And if anything were to go south, you need to validate your escrow deposit. Without it, it means you did not follow the terms in the agreement of your contract, and you could create problems. And more importantly, you don't want to freak your sellers out. Make that deposit, guys. You're going to get it back anyways, or your seller's going to replace it. Step number three, most important part for me as the wholesaler, and most of you miss this, have your title company immediately reach out to your seller and welcome them to the title company. Let them know, hey, I'm so glad you're working with Rick and Zach, whoever the buyer for it is. They love to help people out. They are 100% legitimate. They've already left a deposit. I'm pulling the title as we speak. I just want to go over and verify some information. They're going to pull the mortgage information, any type of liens or any information on the house. They're going to make sure they got the right contact information, the email, the phone number, and it is important. I have my title company reach out to the seller, usually within 12 hours of submitting the contract, but never past 24 hours. Your biggest risk when working with a seller is the lack of communication after you submit the contract. And what better way than to solidify your contract and work up your credentials and having the title company reach out on behalf of you saying, listen, Rick gave me the contract. He's excited about working with you. He told me all about you. I just want to call and welcome you and verify this information. Guys, that phone call will save more of your wholesale deals than anything else. And you need to implement this step number 3, having your title company reach out to your sellers. The step number 4 is now the title company is going to do what they call pull title. And this just simply means they're going to look at the chain of title from the day that property was built all the way up to now, and they're going to make sure everything exchanged, all documents were executed like a deed in trust, and make sure everything is clean and copacetic. And then once they see it's clean, they will insure the title and give what they call a title commitment. Yes, you can request the title commitment and it spells out what the policy covers and anything that you need to fix. Now, a lot of times as a wholesaler, this comes back and they go, hey, we've got to fix this, this, and this. Here's the really good news is you just ask the title company what you need to get fixed. Sometimes people do quick claim and they didn't have their spouse sign off on it. Sometimes there's probates and it's missing signatures. Ask your title company what you need to get executed and do we need a notary, and work with them to resolve these issues. Most of the issues I have in wholesaling are resolved in the first 2 weeks, if not 4 weeks, when there's a problem resulting from real estate. Remember, if you wait to submit your contract till you get a cash buyer and you got a really good deal and then there's a small problem with the title, it could delay you from 30 days up to 90 to 120 days. It's better to get this out front. I know some of you wholesalers go, well, what if I can't close on the deal and make it happen? Listen, pull the title. If you're serious about this business, pull the title. Most title companies are pretty lenient. If a deal doesn't work out, as long as you're sending them regular business, they're okay to eat a title or two pull. But by avoiding pulling title, you're just going to bottleneck up your business when there's problems. And guys, we go out and hunt for problems. Make sure that that title gets pulled as soon as possible when you have that contract. Step number 5, the title company is going to pull what they call a lien search. Now, this is very subjective depending on what state you're in and what the title company is. And the reality is most of them are going to charge you between $75 and $250 for a lien search. If they do that, ask for the report. You paid for it, you deserve it. And I'm telling you, I have a lot of deals that pop up that liens come after the fact. Now, your title insurance covers the lien portion, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. Sometimes it can be written out of the title commitment and you want to make sure. So it's so imperative you get a title lien search report, because if something comes back, that is your proof that, hey, I paid you to run this. You said it was clean. If something comes up 6 months or 6 years after the fact, you need to hold on to that lien search report. I've had this problem multiple times and it has covered my butt, because you basically tell the title company they need to work it out. Without that lien search, they're going to tell you, well, we checked out the liens, but we didn't do an official lien search, and you're going to get the runaround. I'm just telling you guys, get the lien search. It will save you. I've had thousands of dollars have come back to me because I didn't get this report. Every file we have has a title commitment and a lien search report. By the way, that fee is highly negotiable. It typically costs them between $50 and $100 to pull it. Sometimes they just have to do what they have to call in and verify with the utilities, with electric or water, and they have to fax over a report. Make sure you get all that paperwork back. It is very, very important. So step number 6 is your title company is now going to prepare a closing statement, and this is what they call the HUD-1 statement. Now, since we're dealing with cash, it's very, very clean, but honestly, the first time you look at it, they look super complicated. Now, here's the good news is, once you know what your settlement charges are with your title company, and by the way, I did an entire video on breaking down how settlement charges work, which ones are negotiable. Check that out on Flip with Rick. I go into detail on that video. Just search for title fees and title charges, because a lot of them are negotiable. Now, the first set you're going to have on there are the government charges. These are state, local, or federal taxes, and you just pay it. The title company doesn't make any money. It's non-negotiable. Now, the negotiable fees are going to be the settlement fees, the cost of the lien search. The title insurance is pretty much set in there. And then you're also going to have a bunch of little tiny costs in there. Now, title companies love to play around with these names. My suggestion to you is get a total sum of the settlement fees, the lien search, a settlement fee, anything that's not a government related fee outside of title insurance and add up. Sometimes they tell you, go, Rick, my settlement fee is only $395, but you get $700 of junk charges called like lien search fees. Sometimes they charge you $200 for a wire. Guys, common sense, you can negotiate all this stuff. How you combat this is ask for their settlement fees when you're interviewing the title company so they can't play games with you. Now, here's a little tip for you to share with you. If you're ever doing a double closing, which is a little bit more advanced strategy, which we're not going over here, or basically you're buying a property and reselling it cash 30 days later on like a wholesale deal, your title insurance fee, you can get up to a 50 to 55% discount on the second side of that transaction because basically they're insuring a very, very short window, sometimes less than 30 days. And you get a discounted fee. If you don't ask for it, they won't give it to you. So if you had a $2,000 title policy and say you were doing a wholesale and you went to resell it, you can reduce that fee by $1,000 at minimum. So if you don't ask, you don't get, it's called a reissue credit on the title insurance. So now your title company is putting the HUD-1 statement, the closing statement together. And this is going to go through all the seller's expenses, all the buyer's expenses. Most of us don't have realtor fees associated. They'll put that on there as well as too. They're going to put the title, the cost of title, and they're going to do the settlement fees. And then usually on the front page, you're going to have a section called Prorations. And this is the section where they divvy up the cost of the house over the year. So for an example, the taxes, they cover a 1-year period. So if the taxes were $1,200, it is $100 a month. So if it was sold in the middle of the year, then basically the seller is going to give a $600 credit back. And then the buyer gets a $600 credit because that tax bill, maybe it comes due at the end of the year. And that's how prorations works. If there's an HOA or anything like that, this is going to be in the proration section. And this what will allow you to break down the cost on a per day basis. They sometimes call it a per diem, but keep in mind, prorations is just fairly assessing the taxes. Now, occasionally as wholesalers, we just decide to pick up all the fees because they give us a great deal, but you need to know what those fees are. Make sure you ask for them because sometimes we buy properties with back-to-back behind in taxes and some of these numbers can add up and you didn't know it. So guys, it is about prorating and doing per diem. It helps break down the cost. Honestly, this is probably the most confusing part of a HUD statement. It still confuses me this day, especially when it's close to tax time. Talk to your title company. They will walk you through this part. It's not as bad as it sounds. And step number 7 is the title company is going to handle all the transactions, the financials. Number 1, they are licensed insured with their escrow. They have to follow the contract to the T. One party can't just say, I quit and I want my money back. It doesn't work that way. Both parties have to consent. They'll release money from escrow. Now, if there's any type of loans or like there's hard money loans or there's liens that need to be paid off, the title company takes care of all of that because a big question me and Zach get all the time is, who pays off the mortgage and who settles out the final liens? The title company does. Remember, they do a lien search, they pull a title report, and they figure out what the math is depending on what time of year you get it, and they're in charge of dispersing all those monies. So whatever the seller owes, their mortgage, any outstanding utility bills, water bills, any type of garbage or any type of lien on the house, unless stated otherwise in the contract, is going to come out of the seller's proceeds. A lot of wholesalers get this mixed up. If you say on your contract you're going to pay all closing costs, it is an open, wide open statement that can get you in trouble. And my suggestion is if you want to pay for the seller's title portion fees, you put on there on the addendum, seller agrees to pay buyer's closing fees, settlement fees for this transaction. Buyer's responsible for paying any outstanding debts, liens, or mortgages against this property, unless you agree otherwise. By using the statement, seller pays all closing costs, it's very general and honestly, it's open to interpretation. And to avoid that argument, be more detailed in your addendums so it's very clear to the title company who's paying for what. Remember, you can always go back and pay more for your seller, but it's hard to get you to unwind and pay less. So keep that in mind when you write that addendum. And step number 8 is going to be the final disbursements, because this is a big question people get in real estate. I go, well, if I give them the money, why I'm not going to sign off my deed till I get my money. This is why people use title companies. They are third parties. Once they execute the deed and it gets notarized, the chain of title is all clear and everything adds up and it's funded, then the monies are exchanged in exchange for the sign off of the deed. And nobody trusts the buyer or the seller. And that's why they bring in a title company, and they are on the hook for dispersing that money and making sure the deed is signed correctly and they have witnesses and the right notary to do it. Which brings us to step number 9. Now, the next step is somebody has to record in the official records the change in deed and any other documents that come with it. So once the deed is signed over, only the seller signs the deed because they have to grant it. And then they put you, the wholesaler or your cash buyer's name in there. And that executes the change in official records of the owner of record, which spells out the clear chain of title. And then keep in mind after that, if there is a mortgage, so once they record the deed and if there's a mortgage, it is the titles company's job to make sure it is on official record, and they are routinely audited, and it is their job to make sure everything is perfect and lined up. This is one of the main reasons why we all use title company, because there's a level of trust, there's a level of commitment, there is licensed bonded insurance, and they also get audited. And this is why we use title companies, to make sure everything is done above the books. And honestly, it makes you look so much more legitimate as a wholesaler, because everyone wants to know that everyone's playing by the rules and no one's breaking the laws. And this is the main reason why we use title company, because it creates trust. The more trust you create with your buyers and your sellers, the better off you're going to do. And honestly, if you're new to wholesaling, using a highly qualified title company makes you seem much more legit, even if you haven't done deals. Guys, make sure you're using a really good wholesaling title company. So the last part, step number 10, is the title company will handle any type of notaries or witnesses. The last thing you want to do, and I've learned this the hard way, is do not get involved in hiring a notary, especially if you're doing it mobile. So we're going to go over a little bit on the virtual stuff, but it is important that the title company handles the entire notary process, because if anything ever comes into question, the title company is responsible for it, not you. It's their job to verify you have a legitimate transaction. It's their job to verify the ID, and it's their job to verify the signature. And what you want to do is get witnesses that are not related to you. And states are really cracking down to make sure notaries are doing their jobs above and beyond. And it is imperative that the title company hires the notary, even if it's within the title company or you're doing it via mobile. Leave it to the title company. It's brutally important. So a couple tips here. If you got to determine if you're doing wholesaling locally or virtually. Listen, if you're doing it locally, find a title company that is closest to your sellers, the area you market, and make it super convenient for your sellers. The last thing you want to do is have a seller drive 75 miles across town to use your special title company. They're going to look at you with a strange eye. And to be honest with you, a lot of times I use my title company as a third party to come in to validate that Rick's real, and we do business all the time. And they also explain assignment of contract to my cash buyers. And here's what I do, guys. I don't explain it. If they have a question on the validity of my transactions, I like to bring them over to the title company. I introduce myself. I show them my escrow agent. I show them the person in charge of title, and they show them how a third party insures the transactions. And it's all above board, recorded, licensed, and insured. Honestly, it is a game changer. You have to use a local company. Make sure you use one's convenient. Sometimes when you expand your territories, it's okay to have multiple title companies, because your sellers and your buyers love to go to a local title company. Trust me, it will make you look like a rock star, because you need to make these transactions as convenient and as easy as possible. Now, if you're doing it virtually, as I said before, title companies are insured and licensed state by state. Now, if you're doing it virtually, you need to find a company, a title company in that state, and make sure you research your laws. If your state requires an attorney, is make sure they're really good at doing mobile closings, meaning they have to hire a mobile notary. They have to send docs out. Sometimes they have to mail. Sometimes they have somebody printed. And make sure they're extremely comfortable doing that. They understand your business, and they're really efficient. That way they can cover that entire state. So it doesn't matter if they're 200 or 300 miles apart. As long as they're within that state, they will accomplish exactly what you want to do, because you're already handling your clients virtually. The title company should do the exact same, still follow the exact same rules I've explained in this video, and you guys will do amazing with your virtual wholesaling business. Just make sure you use a company that specializes in mobile closings. So guys, that's it. In this video, I explained what is the purpose of a title company and what are the 10 steps a title company takes to procure a closing. I've walked it through head to toe, and honestly, I'm a wholesaler, so I kind of explain as a wholesaler. Honestly, even if you're not a wholesaler, these 10 steps are always going to be the rule of law on how closings works. Listen, if you have any questions, you want to learn more about wholesaling, go over to freewholesaling.com. Me and my son teach you in grave detail how to get started in wholesaling, how to get your first deal, and how to get to your first $100,000. Absolutely no expense. Go ahead and check that out. And guys, if you got value from this video, do me a favor, make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe button so other people can get the truth on how wholesaling really works. This is Rick Ginn, and I'll see you in the next video.